Welcome back to another episode of the Be the CEO of Your Life and Business podcast. This topic is going to be a little more legal. I'm so excited about this topic. So we thought that it would be really interesting to bring kind of like a case study to the podcast to talk about a specific issue that I honestly think that Laura and I, every single week, we encounter this kind of problem time and time again. With our clients. And as you all may or may not know, we're attorneys that represent individuals and businesses in business disputes and contract disputes. We also help businesses as general counsel. So we answer a lot of questions about their contracts, the inner workings of their business, their employment issues, etc. So we have had a lot of experience dealing with contract litigation. And something that is a recurring theme is the contract that the client or consumer or the business owner enters into without having an attorney review it.
Yep.
And yeah. I know what you're all thinking of, like, oh, well, I'm not going to ask an attorney to review every single contract. Okay, so this is what I want to say to that. I totally understand, right? You're in the heat of the moment, you're negotiating, the person across the table from you seems like a really great guy, and you've been referred to them, and you have so many referral sources, and everybody loves this person. That still does not negate the fact that the contract might not be legally sufficient, or that it might not be protecting you the best way that it possibly can protect you. So the case study that I want to go into, and this I think applies to so many different facts across the board, is a consumer that enters into a contract with a contractor without having the legally sufficient requirements set forth in the contract, like a start date, an end date, the actual total price, the methods of payments, the dates upon which payments are going to be paid, the dates upon which there's certain performance measures that need to be met, a signature by both parties. All of these things need to be present in a contract. And there are a lot of reasons why, but one of the biggest overarching reasons is because there is a protection for consumers that is inherent in a lot of legislation and statutes to make sure that consumers are not being defrauded by contractors who might be taking a ton of money up front for a project and then not satisfying the terms of the contract or not performing the terms of the contract. In the past few years alone, I have had this issue come up on a recurring, oh my gosh, over and over again. And I get it. When you're eager to get something going or have a job started or enter into a contract for whatever it might be, a new pool, or it might be something at your home or something for your business, you might be like, all right, yeah, this looks good. And, they're reputable. They've got a 5-star review. Wonderful. And that's not the fullest picture. And the reason that I say that I'm encouraging people to go to an attorney is because the amount of money that you might pay for an attorney consultation to review the contract that you're entering into is likely going to be a lot less than the damages that might come to you if something is to happen.
So can you go into the case that triggered your idea for this podcast?
Yes.
Because I can't even believe, this stuff happens all the time.
Yeah.
But it's just so unfortunate and crazy.
It is really unfortunate. So I have clients who are in the midst of a very tense battle with a contractor who started to do work at their home, and for a multitude of reasons given by the contractor was delayed in completing the performance of the home. And all of a sudden, one day, my clients get home and see that they have a tag on their house, which means that the town has come through and violated them or put them on notice of potential violations. And this is in a home improvement contract situation. So my client gets this tag, contacts the contractor right away, and the contractor goes, oh boy, okay, I'll call the town or I'll call the municipality right away. And we don't know if he actually did any of that, But the contractor then tried to say, okay, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do the work. I'll be there in a couple of days. I'll get it done. No worries. We'll get everything rectified. To then come to find out that the proper permits were never pulled. They were never applied for. The contractor does not have a home improvement contractor's license number.
Which is why there was no number on the contract, but the client wouldn't have known that because they didn't know to look for that.
Exactly. So now, in addition to my client being entitled to seek legal recourse for the numerous issues with the actual work that was performed at his property, my client is also investigating what recourse he would have through the Division of Consumer Affairs, and also through the town as well for this work that was done at the property without a permit and without the proper materials. And it's now damaged my client's home to a point that they're not only coming out of pocket, or they've already come out of pocket to the contractor, they're now going to have to come out of pocket even more to have another contractor come in, because here's a big pro tip: don't have that contractor remove the work that they did. But they're going to have to hire another contractor to come in to restore the property to the condition that it should have been in if they hadn't started, or to actually finish the job. And so when you push the pause button here, this is where I say that the damages that you might face or might be out of pocket for are going to far exceed the 1 hour consultation with an attorney to review whatever contract it is that you're entering into.
Everybody should have an attorney on speed dial.
Everybody.
And I think that people are scared off because they think they don't want to pay an attorney. If you find a firm like us, like if you just want to do a consultation, like we do free consultations, right? If you retain us, obviously then you have to pay, and it depends on the matter. But it pays to have somebody to call, because you could save yourself, just like another situation with somebody that we've been dealing with who entered into a business arrangement, invested in real estate. And when they didn't have an attorney look at anything, right? When they handed over literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when I looked at the agreement that she showed me, I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, this is not a business agreement. This is an agreement that two individuals would enter into if they were living together. Like, it was not in any way, shape, or form related to the business relationship that they were entering into. And now they're fighting with this person to try to get their money back. And had they consulted with somebody to begin with, any attorney who's worth anything would have taken a look at that and been like, okay, you can't sign this. I mean, it's just not worth it. Like, if you have to pay a couple $100s to have somebody review an agreement, if you're not sure about something, at least in the state of New York, if you sign a contract, you're presumed to have read it and have agreed to and understand the terms that are in there.
Yes.
So if you sign a contract, you can't then argue after the fact, oh, I didn't know that meant that.
Yeah. That ignorance is not going to get you very far. We've talked about this in the context of partnership agreements and partnership disputes. We've talked about it in the context of mine and Laura's own partnership. A contract is a way to protect a relationship. And I think that
so true.
If you are the consumer, right, in the situation like I was presenting, if you're that consumer or that customer, and you go to the contractor and say, listen, I'm not really familiar with these kinds of contracts. This is the first time that I've ever had this kind of work done to my house, or I've engaged in this kind of a contractor's arrangement before. I'm going to run it by my attorney to just make sure that we are both protected, because I want to protect our relationship going forward. If the contractor says no, you have to sign on the dotted line, they're not the contractor for you, folks. Like, run. That is the biggest red flag waving here. Get out of town. This is not going to happen. Any reputable contractor who's also a businessman or woman is going to say, I totally understand what you're talking about. Please, by all means, go have it reviewed. And if they don't, they don't. And you find another contractor to do the work.
Yeah.
In the case like Laura was talking about, it's the same thing. That arrangement was a long-term arrangement. It was short-term and long-term. There were short-term deadlines that had to be met. And then there was a long-term goal of real estate investment of getting their return back, right? Like
Yeah.
getting that investment back. To not have an attorney involved in that kind of an arrangement is a huge
It is
problem.
so I just I can't get over it.
Yeah.
You know, it's so important, especially if you are entering into an arrangement like that, to understand what's happening, because you could be out hundreds of thousands of dollars
Yep.
when you could have paid an attorney a little bit of money to to protect your investment, basically.
Yes.
And instead now you have to hire an attorney to chase this person over the investment that you made,
Yep.
which is going to cost a lot more money than it would have if you had just had somebody review the contract.
I also recently had a client consult with me. Actually, it didn't turn into being a client, but it was a consultation. And it was a contract for an event venue, so that the client could have a family party at this venue. And they signed a contract. Allegedly, the terms were all spelled out there. And it was really interesting because they sent over that contract, and what ended up happening is the venue ended up moving their event to basically like an upstairs room. They were like, sorry, we double booked you. And it was like 2 weeks before the event was going to happen. And so they moved this consult's family event to like an upstairs room, and the consult was like, no way, we can't fit everybody up there. That's gonna be so cramped. That's not what we bargained for. The contract states that we were gonna have this room. How could you have double booked? Like, went through the whole, argument with them. And then they went out and found another venue because they were pinched for time. And the contract was literally a document with the date of the event, and then a copy of the menu and what the price would be. And that was the entire contract. Now, I didn't hear anything bad happening after that, right? But this is not one of those things where you can live and die by the idea of like, oh, nothing bad happened, so it's okay. No, it's going to catch up to you at one point or another. So in that case, I was like, what? Like, this is and that venue hall was a very reputable venue hall.
Really?
Yes, it was. I'll tell you who it was afterwards.
Okay.
And I was like, this is their contract? No way. Nope. This is not even a contract. It wasn't even signed by like the manager or the maitre d'. Nobody else signed it on behalf of the venue. And I'm sitting there like, what in the world? And this is not to shame people. This episode is really not about it. But you can get so caught up in the excitement or the stress in that situation of like finding another place to go, that you lose all concept of rational, logical thinking of like, is everything spelled out in here? What happens if the venue double books me this time? What's my recourse? Where's my protection? And there's nothing in there.
We think that way.
I know.
Because we're trained to think that way, and that's our job.
Yeah.
Why do you think people don't think to consult with an attorney? Like, I think people don't even think about it.
I think people don't think about it. I also think that they don't want to hurt the feelings of the person that's sitting across from them because they feel like they're challenging the contract or the arrangement in some way. And they don't want to start the relationship off on that bad footing. But I don't know. I don't know if it's just because I feel like we see the clients that we deal with that are our business clients are super reputable, and they do everything by the book, and they cross their T's and they dot their I's, and they make sure they have contracts in place, and they make sure that they are consulting with their attorneys regularly. You talked about it a few weeks ago about the client that called you before he was handling a dispute or an issue with an employee. And it was that foresight of just, let me pick up the phone. I have one business client that I work with that the damages are not huge on a couple of the cases that we have, but this client is so thoughtful and thorough about what does this mean for my business going forward, and how should I change my contract moving ahead, because this might impact, like the decision here, or the determination here might impact how I do business going forward. All those things considered, like, that's really key and pivotal to the success of a business.
I think too that people are scared off by the cost.
Agreed.
Because, but you don't know until you inquire. Like with our clients now, I understand why people think that, because I have had clients say to me, I don't want to call you because I don't want to be charged. Like, I don't want to have to pay. And I was like, I understand that that may have been your experience in the past, but I don't charge clients to speak to me.
Yeah.
I know a lot of attorneys do, and that's fine.
Mhm.
That my practice
Mhm.
is that if I charge a client every time they send me an email or pick up the phone, they're not going to want to talk to me. And so I had an attorney that I worked for, many, many years ago, who said to me, I don't charge clients for calling me because then they're not going to want to call you.
Yeah.
So even this client who called me with the issue with his employee, I didn't charge him for those phone calls. Now, if I'm researching something or I had to consult with another employment attorney in a different state because I wasn't familiar with the law, that's something different.
Right.
But I'm not charging a client if they call me and have a question about something, a contract or something like that, or like an employee issue, so before you say absolutely not, I'm not consulting an attorney to look at a contract, you should inquire.
Yeah.
Because you might be surprised.
Mhm.
And it's worth it to inquire and maybe find somebody who you can have a free consult with, or pay, a flat fee to review a contract,
Right.
something like that, just so you're protecting yourself. And I like what you said before about how you can, because you were talking about how it might be uncomfortable for people. They don't want to make people upset to say, I'm going to have my attorney look at it. I would phrase it as, listen, this has nothing to do with you. This is just me just wanting to be clear as to what I'm agreeing to, and to basically protect our personal or business, whatever relationship going forward. I really like that. I think that's good.
You also don't have to lead with saying, hey, I'm going to have this contract reviewed by my attorney. You can also just say, let me just take a day to just review it, figure out if this works right, if the finances are all lined up for us, etc. And then take that time and reach out to, your trusted attorney and speak to them about the issues that you have. The other thing I think that that clients or customers are so nervous to contact an attorney about is because they don't feel like they know the right questions to ask. Right. And we've had that experience. We've talked to other females in particular that walk into an attorney's office and they feel like the questions that they're asking are so, obvious, and how could you possibly be asking me this question? They get really bad feedback from the attorney. And I'll say the same thing I did like with the contractor, then that's not the attorney for you. If you can't walk into an attorney's office and feel like you're leaving with education and information, like armed with the knowledge that you feel more confident in moving forward in whatever the issue is that you have, or the question that you had, hopefully it was answered, then that's not the right attorney for you. Yeah. And that's okay too. Then that means that you just have to find somebody that jives with you and is willing to work with you.
And they are out there.
They are out there.
They are out there.
Yes.
You just find somebody that you're comfortable with, that you can ask questions to, because I'm telling you right now, we are like a broken record, but I keep saying this over and over again, here and in our blog. Also, we talk about this all the time. It will save you time and money in the long run.
Yes.
If you have somebody review like a business contract that you're entering into, or, a relationship that you're starting, a project with a contract or something like that. So, although it might be scary to think about having an attorney that you can call, you should have somebody that you can reach out to, because it will save you time and money in the end. And you're really just doing it to protect yourself. So we hope these tips were helpful. We thank you for spending time with us, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.